Zack Snyder, welcome to Slow-Mo Studio Room.
Awesome to be here. Awesome
Thanks for coming. So what I've done is programmed a move that will start the camera here, whoosh the camera over here.
Correct.
And halfway through we'll do a zoom and a focus pull.
Nice.
Hold it for a sec, zoom out. A very sort of 300 inspired
I love it.
Zoom in shot.
And what's going to happen in the...
So we thought maybe Dan could run, jump over this jank looking bin, and slice an apple with a katana midair.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, perfect.
The slightly safer version of that, if it's feeling a bit risky, is he just hits a tennis ball with a cricket bat.
Hits a tennis ball with a cricket bat, also equally difficult.
Because when you did these shots, you had two cameras, right? You had like one camera.
There was three, actually.
Three cameras.
So one, I had been doing a commercial previously, a Gatorade commercial, and the idea came in the storyboard in the Gatorade commercial was they wanted to do classics, drawn storyboard by somebody, where it's like, okay, we start and the guy's running, and then as he jumps, we zoom into his hand as he's catching the ball in ultra slow motion, and then as he catches and pulls it down, he's back. We zoom back out. I'm like, okay, but that's like impossible.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, they were like, well, what's wrong with that? Like, just zoom in. Take your camera and zoom in and then zoom back out again. I know, but if the guy's running and jumping, the ball's coming, and you want the moment the ball hits the glove, right? So that means someone has to anticipate.
And then by hand.
Crank it. So I said, okay, well, maybe the way to do it is we'll take three cameras, one in through a beam splitter, the two longer lenses through a beam splitter, and the slightly wider one will just set right on top. And then what we'll do is, in post, because all three actions will be covered with the exact same camera, all at super high frame rate, we'll be able to not only adjust the frame rate in post, but actually find, because the two beam splitter cameras are filming the exact same frame, you can move between the focal lengths, sort of a fake zoom. And I go, at least in that way, we'll be able to actually time out when exactly. So that was where I sort of cut my teeth on the concept that we used in 300, which was the exact same thing, but we had two Photosonics cameras and one just normal high speed.
So that was all film back then, Photosonics?
All film Photosonics.
Scary, big, loud camera.
I cut my teeth in slow motion with film, and it's really like you have to wear I would have like a work glove because there's a giant wheel that spins on the back of the camera that actually you can slow. Once you say cut, you could touch this wheel with your gloved hand and kind of slow the motor down so the film doesn't break.
Does it smoke like a cartoon, right? Like
it literally does. If you don't have the glove, it'll burn your hand for sure.
I got into the film industry around 2006. It was around the time Phantoms were coming in and Photosonics was less frequently used.
Oh, sure.
And a lot of the old school film guys were kind of bummed that the Phantom made no noise when it was filming in high speed. Yeah, because they missed the sound of Photosonics. It's
really upsetting, the noise that it goes like, and then a lot of times you'll get a jam, and the film will just go, and it just like sounds like a car accident. And then you open the side of the camera, and you look in the gate, and the film is literally just mashed into this disgusting. You're just like, oh my gosh. And when I did commercials, that's when I started to, when I would use the Photosonics cameras a lot, and I knew all the guys because I used it quite a bit. They'd always be like, okay, what are we doing today? And I'd be like, okay, we have a shot, it's a shot with we have these jet fighters that are the actor is like turning like this, and we're like on a counter dolly move, and the jets are gonna go that way. So we have to push the dolly super fast, because the jets are like gonna be turning super hard behind them, and I'm gonna have to counter with the camera and barely able to look through it because it's super fast. So it was a lot of that, a lot of seat of the pants. But cool that we had jet fighters.
It's amazing. Yeah, I feel like I've experienced stuff where using Phantoms and a monitor on top, if I'm trying to track a really fast moving thing, the monitor doesn't actually update fast enough. You kind of just have to look over the lens and just wink.
You need like a sight on like a anti-aircraft gun. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we take a look at this move?
Okay,
you want to come over here with me?
Yeah, sure.
It's a super janky light setup, but it should.
That's cool. Just point the lights at the thing.
So the camera will do this. 3, 2, 1. and in there was a was a very fast zoom in and out.
Oh, cool. I didn't see it.
So,
I mean, I was looking at the hardware.
So do you want to throw the apple or trigger the robot?
Or would you
Oh,
like
let
to do
me
something
throw the
different?
apple.
You want to throw the apple? Okay,
Yeah.
so you could be.
I don't want to be on the trigger because then you'd be like, can you trigger the move at the right time, Zach? It's really not that hard.
It's like, where's the most pressure, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'll take the least pressure position. And then you're going to have to just tell me where you want the apple.
I will do. I'm going to be jumping over this dirty little bin here.
Yeah.
So maybe the apple should be like
Yeah.
around here.
Yeah, that feels good.
Yeah.
And then
I thought you guys were going to make me cut the apple. I'm glad that.
you can if you want.
No, I'm fine. Tossing.
I'm going to have to take this out of my pocket just while I'm doing the move.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, no sound.
No sound. I'll just leave it over here just in case.
You get picked up by my mic. I'll try and get close enough.
Yeah. Don't get too close. Yeah.
I'm just going to turn these on for a little bit of something in the
Oh,
background.
nice. And these don't phase or anything?
No, they're pretty good.
That's
They're
great.
Titan tubes.
That's pretty good. You guys are doing all the testing. You can tell me what doesn't phase and what does. And
We'll let you know what's no good.
yeah, give me a tennis ball just so I can just.
we'll do a little practice.
I'll just put it kind of in a close enough spot.
Yeah, about there. I'm going to be jumping. I'll show you my action.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
And then I'm going to run. Try and slice it.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just going to be a little thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be swinging it wildly.
good.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. That wasn't bad.
Can you go to the zoomed in position?
Yeah.
And just hold for a beat, and we just kind of, because then I can sort of put the apple there.
That's zoomed in.
That's zoomed in.
Position.
So actually, like here-ish.
I mean, I would say that we should try it there because you're going to be in the air.
Well, you want me to get it on the way down?
Should we just try it there and see how the time
Yeah,
goes?
let's try it.
Yeah.
Let me just see it. It's an exit sign.
Okay, should we just do an apple one instead of messing around with the tennis ball?
Yep.
Yeah, we could go full-blown
Let's do
apple. We've got like 20 apples.
20 apples, good.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, whew, short. Sorry. You nicked it for sure. I feel like I definitely could do better.
Well, it might not be bad.
Might not be bad, actually.
Oh, look, the apple coming in already. It's great.
Oh, come on. No. I just slightly peeled it for you.
Yeah,
I didn't exactly fuck it.
it's pretty good though.
Yeah,
That's really good.
Yeah, not bad.
Kind of zoomed in right on the apple, which was cool.
Yeah. Zach, a much better apple thrower than me. We've learned that.
Anytime you need me for some sort of throwing, you can call. Zach, okay, we have this crazy throwing thing we need. Is there any way you could fly out?
Zach, I know you're busy, but
We're not even going to mention you helped us at all, but we just need a good throw. How about the cricket bat with the apple?
yeah, we can do that. You might have to duck a little bit.
Yeah, you might have a bit of apple flying.
That's all right. I feel like I think it'd be like more, it'll be pretty dramatic if you really.
Do you think the camera should be tilted up a bit?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, I think
Let me just do that adjustment.
I agree. It's
clean.
actually more of a bite out of it than I thought. It's not.
Yeah, it looked like I just peeled it.
Yeah, but it's definitely.
That's all right. If we just keep doing it, maybe I'll have peeled the apple.
Oh, that's true. Just throw it again.
Yeah, throw the same one, yeah?
Yeah, just throw it so that the other end.
Yeah. Can you do that? Big cricket guy, huh?
Not really. I mean, I've watched a little bit on TV. What are you?
Do you want to see the zoomed in position again?
Yeah, just. Oh, you tilted up too a little bit, so.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit. More apples. Where are they?
Well, we got a box full. Here you go. We got a bushel.
We're gonna cut a bushel of apples.
Entire bushel.
There they are. The bushel in the apple box.
Yeah,
in the apple box. It's literally the first time I've been
Never
on a
once
movie
been
set
used for
where there's
apples.
been a boxes of apples. That's really film dork hilarious.
I'll give you a 3, 2, 1. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh! You good? Did you get hit?
Yeah, a little shoulder, but that was good.
I was middle.
Apples in.
Oh yeah, see it.
Go for the zoom. That's pretty good. And then
We haven't had a bad take really, to be honest.
That's Zach in the corner
Yeah,
dodging,
yeah.
dodging pieces of apples.
Hiding from the apples.
How often do you actually get filmed on Phantoms? Ever?
Not never,
Not that much?
but not a lot.
Yeah.
It's mostly like this.
Yeah.
'Cause
Just on
inevitably, I'm the one chucking the thing.
Sure. Because you're the best at it. Yeah.
They're like, okay. And also, I always go like, it always feels rude to make someone else take that responsibility because, like, it's like, okay, there's 100, 300 people standing here. Like, hey, you, throw the apple. Like, I'm always like, I'll throw the apple because if it's up.
Get it exactly here in 3D space.
Yeah,
perfectly in focus.
literally, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
This is a very luxurious setting.
It is. I've seen some interviews with you before, and you've always been sat in like a nice comfy chair and
I prefer this. It's more of feels like shit's getting done here, so that's cool.
Feel more at home here?
It does. It's more natural.
It's more real. There we go.
All right. Well, we're here today with I would say, the king of slow motion, Zack Snyder.
Oh, nice.
Thanks for visiting
Coming
us.
from you, that means something.
What would you say interested you in slow-mo from the beginning?
It's funny, people have asked me that, and I really think, I had this Super 8 camera my mom got me when I was like 11 years old. It's a Canon, I think it's a 1014 XLS or something, I forget. But anyway, it had a button on the side of it that like would ramp the camera to slow motion just by pushing it. And so like you could be filming, and while you're filming, you push this button on the side and it would go to 50 frames. Which not insane, but at the time was pretty cool.
Unusual at the time.
Yeah, I thought it was really rad. And
that gives you that natural like over cranking effect, like the speed ramp is built into what you're
it's
shooting.
built in, yeah. I think there was like an auto exposure, like
Really?
yeah, like
Wow.
compensation, which is
That's
insane
really cool.
for the time. I think as aesthetically, as I grew and sort of I had this love of graphic novels and sort of I think the idea of the trying to recreate like a still frame in a movie kind of really led me to think about slow motion as a tool to kind of extend a certain composition beyond what it would just be a flash at 24 frames. You just be like, okay, I think that looked like the drawing, but this way you could really go like, oh my God, that's the frame, right? You just fly through the actual moment. And I think that's what really got me interested in using higher and higher frame rates. Because in the film days, I think it was like 380 or 360 was the
max.
Was the max
speed?
Yeah, for
at
the
35
film cameras. Yeah, 35 mil, which we thought was insane at the time, right?
So were the Photosonics 35 or were they like Super 16?
They were 35.
Okay.
Yeah, they were 35.
They're crazy tech. I wish I'd got into the industry slightly earlier to have experienced that kind of thing.
Yeah, you guys ought to like get a Photosonics camera and run some film through it for fun.
I wanted to film like the prism in the front, like take a lens off and just point a phantom into it.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the rotating prism ones are different from those are higher frame rate ones.
Yeah, they might be the Super 16 ones.
But they because they're not, the registration isn't as tight.
Right. Yeah. So it's like.
Yeah, this image kind of wiggles a little bit inside because the prism is laying it down in a less locked way than the actual mechanical grab the frame. I mean, if you think about the process, it's insane. The film is actually dragged down, held, the shutter opens and closes, and then pulls down the next frame.
Yeah.
That all happens in this, it's like a watch or something. It's insane.
Yeah, I filmed inside it. It wasn't a Bolex, but it was one of those kind of things. And I just took the lens off and I took the front off. And it was crazy to see the way the film kind of like loosely travels.
Oh, because
many times per second.
Because that's the whole thing, like where they say there has to be a little bit of like, you don't want the film like just
the pressure plate
too
is
tight in the gate, because then it can't be grabbed.
And you can see as the rotating disc shutter spins, I actually wrote frame numbers on all the
Oh,
piece of
cool.
thing. So you see the shutter go over, it's like, it might say frame 1, and then as it comes around it says 2, and you see no movement. So to take off the shutter, you then see the pull down claw like moving it into place and doing this, and it's just so mechanical and so cool.
It's so cool.
Which you don't get with a
So
Phantom.
imagine that at
like 300.
24 frames is crazy, right?
Yeah,
So,
I can't imagine that at 360.
Yeah, it's insane. On movie cameras, because I inevitably, regardless of the camera, I'm trying to make it go shoot slow-mo, and you find its limitations of how it writes. Like if an object's dropping from the top or the bottom or the side, you're like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
I see how the camera writes, because like it squishes it or does something weird to the.
So you probably test the limits of equipment more than most people.
I think I do test the limits of the equipment. I'm always asking the question, like, can it do this? and inevitably they're like, well, it's not recommended or whatever.
Let me call an engineer.
Yeah.
And see what we can...
But I have a great, I love my Red cameras, and, I just have, Jared Land has been really an amazing, friend and kind of innovator for me, and the Red cameras. I only shot film. I've only shot digitally the last 2 movies I've done. Rebel Moon
was Red,
and Army were the first digital movies I've ever shot.
What's more important to you when it comes to a movie camera? Would you say dynamic range is more important than resolution? Do you care about resolution as much? I feel like everyone's always throwing out it's 8K, but you can get really great stuff out of a 2K camera.
I feel 100%. I feel like there's a sweet spot between dynamic range and resolution that you have to kind of, in order for it to be functional, it has to kind of hit because you can light for dynamic range a little bit, but the fall off is the fall off, and inevitably I'm trying to dig in the shadows for something. That's the cool thing about film, is that there was always, in the blacks, there's always something.
Yeah.
In the blacks on a digital camera, there's no, it's just 0. It's black.
Or you end up just staring at the noise pattern of the space sensor.
100%, 100%. I remember I had this light meter called a Cinemeter 2. It was this cool, looked like we called it the Sub Commander, because it was this gigantic.
It was that big?
It was huge. It had all these toggles on it. Yeah. You could toggle in all the NDs and stuff.
Wow.
And so you could get the true exposure. It had frame rate. You'd toggle in, you'd set the frame rate, set the ISO, and then toggle in the different NDs. And I remember when I first got it, I was shooting a car commercial, and I remember it was dawn, snowstorm, Alaska. It's an Audi commercial, and I'm going, man, I feel like it's getting brighter, because we started at dawn, right? It's the meter showing no light, right? So I'm like, man, okay, well, wide open. Let's keep going. I'm like, man, it's getting brighter, but it's still, that's weird. And then I remember just going just for fun, just toggling one of the NDs where I thought they were all off.
You had all the NDs on?
Right? So I was like, oh, so I'm like, click, 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 click. I'm like, oh, for sake. And
Just been waiting here.
The whole thing is 7 stops overexposed, the whole,
Can we just do that again?
But yeah, can we do it again in the blizzard and at dawn? It was one of those things. So I remember sending the footage and going is there anything? And but we clamped it down and we pushed it, and then the look was really cool. It ended up being this super
a nice
amazing style. Yeah, because the car.
Yeah, I meant to do that.
It was a silver car in a snowstorm, so you can imagine it's not. It took a lot of muscle to kind of turn it into something awesome, but it ended up being something awesome. But I learned an awesome lesson. Actually, there was another time when I was shooting this commercial, and the whole crew had gotten stuck, and I was in Arenal in Honduras. I'm waiting for the crew to show up, but I had the camera, and the volcano started to erupt.
What?
And I was like, what? So I'm loading the camera. I'm like, oh, fuck, I've never loaded the camera. In film school I did, but it's been a while, right? So I'm so I load the whole thing and I film it. And I guess the exposure, I didn't have my light meter or anything. I'm guessing the exposure. I'm bracketing, I don't know. And it turned out I loaded the film stock backwards, right? So I shot through the emulsion side.
Oh my.
But the cool thing was I had overexposed it by 5 stops on one of the takes, which was about the film's.
So it went through.
It goes through the emulsion. It went through the emulsion and gave an image. It was really crazy. But then I was up for this commercial where we were trying to recreate this 1920s, suffragettes, trying to get the vote. And so I was like, oh, what we'll do is we'll just load the film backwards and we'll shoot through the emulsion and give this really kind of vintage look. And it does. It's crazy. So
you learned a lesson
that I used later. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see what that looks like. That sounds
kind
really
of a crazy. I think it was a Soft and Dry or Sure deodorant commercial.
I'll have to see if that's on YouTube.
I don't know. I'm sure it's nowhere, but it's
Brands really like slow-mo too because their product is on screen for a long time, and there's always a nice splash of water happening.
Well, think about the whole tabletop industry that basically that was all built around all those crazy rigs and stuff they would do, so the strawberries would roll off this chute and ramp up and land, hit the milk, you know.
Yeah, and then there'd always be like a specialist, like a beer stylist, who would have all these
100%.
different, like a little case full of different,
Oh my gosh,
different levels of
100%.
gelatinous liquid. I
Yeah,
used to love doing
Halliburton,
that.
they'd open it up and put their things out.
Yeah,
You know,
that guy gets stopped at TSA every time. And
oh
like,
yeah.
what's this?
Also, like his rate is insane. The best guy. Like,
The best guy.
That's just because if he messes up in slow motion, everyone can see it for ages.
Yeah,
One of the
right away.
downsides.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's there painting the like shine on the strawberries, you know.
Yeah. How big do you want your droplets of condensation on there?
All right, we should go again because the ones we had before were too small.
So a lot of your slow-mo is paired with CG. Like I was watching Rebel Moon, there's all the energy weapon
Gunfire,
fire.
yeah.
And I was wondering, is it more fun to put CG on slow-mo? Because if you've got like a fictional weapon, you then get to decide what is happening in slow-mo. Whereas when you film something for real in slow-mo, what happens is the truth. But you can make an energy weapon look like anything.
Which is fun, yes, 100%. Like also just like, you know, we end up being pretty dorky. Like I'm like, okay, so because the muzzle flash would create like heat distortion, so let's wiggle the image through the thing,
Yep.
and they do, and so that's all super fun, super dorky. And then the other thing we had was like with these weapons, I was like obsessed with this kind of slag concept, right? Like they fire these kind of molten metal.
Yeah, there's a lot of like splashing on
Yeah,
stuff.
when the slag hits, it like splashes. So that was another element that we knew. Oh, in slow motion, well, we should have had you guys run some experiments with like you obviously did already with the cricket bat, with the slag batting.
Yes.
You know, but it was like it's that stuff that we. Our guys probably looked at that. I don't even know if they did. I'll ask them if they did.
We do hear that sometimes, like on Solo, they watched a video of us doing an underwater explosion.
Oh, right, cool.
And it's like a tiny little firecracker, but it blows out this spherical cavity that then collapses and reignites. And they just shot that for an explosion of some chemical in the Solo movie, which is like
cool.
super flattering that they told us that they saw our video and then.
Oh, that's
made that
cool.
thing, which
That's
is really
cool.
nice to hear because you never know
well,
sometimes.
I mean, because the truth is, you know, you guys have probably shot more slow motion than anybody in the world, just because
maybe
you would have.
maybe battling with you though.
Yeah, I don't know. That's well, you know, I guess over the course of it, but like a lot of times I'll shoot like 60 frames, and people think it's slow motion. I don't. You know, they'll be like, "Oh, you shot all that in slow motion." I'm like, "I did." They're like, "Yeah." I was like, you know, they were firing and running. I'm like, "That's 60 frames. That's not slow motion."
Well, it depends what it is, isn't it? There's like a different league of stuff. Like, you know, you're someone running and jumping, you could film at 60 frames and be like, that's kind of
Pretty
slow.
dramatic, yeah.
Right? But then you film something like a bullet flying through the air at 60 frames, you're not going to get
It's
anything.
the same.
Yeah,
It's the same.
that's what actually I'm enjoying about this new white camera there, the one that does 80,000 full frame, is that human movement pauses. It's just nothing.
It's like
but
no-
then you can have a bullet moving through the frame, and you'll have that differentiation of two speeds. So you have
That's
like someone
cool.
who's just like, and a bullet will be like, and it's nice to see the context of two different speeds to what in your eye looks like two very fast things.
It's really cool because like that's the thing that people don't realize is that what you can do to abstract time, when you abstract time to the point where, you know, humans are like basically standing still.
Yeah, and reaction time is so funny in slow-mo. Like you can have like an explosion go off here, and then minutes later in the slow-mo, the person's like, you know, there's like
Right.
there's such a big delay.
It's already like, the shrapnel would have gone through your body
Yeah.
by the time you get the chance to react, which is cool.
Do you mind the effect of, because when you shoot slow-mo and speed it up to normal speed,
You get it.
you end up with there's no motion blur in the stuff.
Well, yeah, and so a lot of times what I'll do is in visual effects, we'll like add motion
Add it back
blur
in?
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
kind
interesting.
of what I do with the 24 frames, and sometimes I'll leave it, and it's got kind of some sort of Saving Private Ryan
like that
vibe.
45-degree shutter
Yeah,
look.
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like I notice that stuff in movies, but I feel like most people, if it just cuts to a 45-degree shutter looking thing, I don't think most people would think, oh, it's about to go ramp into slow-mo.
Oh, right, for
But,
sure.
I
Well,
feel
and
like-
that's the thing that like sometimes you know, my visual effects supervisor, we'll put motion blur on a 24 frame per second shot that's gonna ramp for that reason,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's not like telegraphing
Yeah.
that it was shot at a high frame rate, you know.
Have you ever
But
shot?
that's stuff that we think about that no one else does. I'm sure.
Yeah.
You and me.
It's just us.
He thinks about it but doesn't bother.
Yeah.
Whereas you're like, no, we'll do it.
Have you ever wanted to do a shot where technology just isn't good enough yet? Like you can't shoot fast enough? I feel like a lot of your slow-mo is very human-based. Like even like
It absolutely
Dr. Manhattan getting ripped apart for the first time.
Yeah,
It's like,
and that also is like, we haven't run into, for instance, saying like, okay, I need that camera, but I need it at like 8K. You know,
right.
you know, like that's, we
might,
haven't gotten
might be
into
a few
that.
decades off from that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, a few decades, in a few decades maybe, yeah.
We've been surprised a lot of the time filming stuff in slow motion. What's going to happen? We don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Has that ever happened with you where you've been like, right, let's get this in slow mo, and then you've been surprised by what happens?
Yeah, actually, we blew up a building. You'll see in part 2 of Rebel Moon, which comes out April 19th. So stay tuned, everybody. Anyway, but we did this explosion where we blew up this big building. It was not a big building. It was like I don't know, tons of primer cord, just blew this building up. So we had like we had all our normal cameras, 2 Phantoms. One of the Phantom shots, we saw that the building blows up. We didn't see it in real life, but the building blows up. The shock wave, right, that came off of it, like the dust, there's like this line of dust that is on, because we had this big bridge set, and then the buildings around it, and the dust ring that goes across. So then basically, after we watch this, like dust, like rise off of everything in this shockwave that went out from the building, and then the second concussive force kind of blows that dust away. So it kind of rises up and then gets blown away.
I love that stuff.
It's
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, because
so
a lot of the
cool.
time, if an explosion's really big, it will start, it'll blow the dust and then it'll make suck it
Yeah,
back a little
suck it
bit,
back
and
a
then it
little
ends
bit,
up
yeah.
swaying. Yeah, it makes me. I feel like I've never filmed this because I always want to put cameras, aimed at the main thing.
Yeah.
But I'd love to just put a Phantom on the dirt and just film from the ground, so you have that shockwave just coming up to the camera like that. I think that'd be a really good
It's a
shot.
bit of an
You
odd
absolutely should do
thought to
that.
have like an explosion here, everyone's like, wow, 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 and then just have a camera just pointed at some
Yeah,
dead.
yeah. You often don't have a third Phantom to go.
Or it'd
for
be
that
cool
shot.
if you if you got some like really small, almost like ball bearings or something, some kind of dirt that was like that wasn't going to get blown away, but that was light enough to like react to the shockwave, so you could really see it. Because sometimes, like, we got lucky because we had been filming in this location for months and driving our trucks around and everything. So there was this perfect dust layer on everything. Like it literally, you couldn't even see it. Yeah. We were used to it. So all the rocks, the buildings, they all were caked with this teeny bit of dust that like one like hard, and the dust just like popped off of it. Because if we had done that explosion right after construction, it wouldn't have been that much dust. But because we had been there for 4 or 5 months shooting, and every day driving the gators and the amount of dust, and we had one of the things we did for the spaceship effects, like there's a whole sequence where these spaceships land. We had used real helicopters to land or to hover to make the dust, because the dust was so.
Is that what you did for the shots of everyone sort of?
Yeah,
like
they're all just getting hit with
that's
helicopter dust, because like there's no way to.
I was wondering if that was huge fans.
There's
or,
no way to do it with fans.
Yeah.
Like and I had this idea. I said, what if we just bring helicopters to simulate the downforce of the jets on the dropships? And everyone was like, oh, it feels expensive. And I was like, well, it's cool though, because we can.
I love that. Is it cool? Yes. All right, fine.
Yeah,
Here's the check for
it
that.
just feels like the way to go. But that's the stuff that caused it was those types of things. We did that over and over, and we had a big war, that we shot there. The dirt was everywhere, and we didn't even, like I said, we didn't even know.
Yeah.
Till we're like, holy shit, man,
and if you
that's
did
in our
know,
lungs, by the way.
And if you did know and you did want that effect, it would have been so much effort to put that dust everywhere, wasn't it? It was
I don't even know how you. I guess you would have had to like get some sort of like water truck filled half with mud, half with dirt, spray the mud everywhere, let it dry over the course of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it went pretty far, shockingly far from the event, like over the bridge, cross the river, out through this field, like all the way.
And it has a different effect on each medium. Like it will affect dust at a different speed not a different speed, but it'll affect it in a different way to water. But you see the effect on
it
much different stuff.
straight across the surface of the water, but then picks up the dust again right on the other side. Yeah, it's cool.
Is that your favorite slow-mo shot from the movie, do you think?
Yeah, I think it was just because it was so. I didn't expect it to have that other quality. There was a few Phantom shots we did. Like, there's a great shot of Sophia, I think it was where she's like, it's that shot where she's running at camera, and she's firing.
In part one?
In part one.
Yeah, that's the one where there's all the red glow and there's all the dust and stuff and the snow in the air.
It's cool too because like it was real snow. We had a snow machine. The fireball is CG. She had we built these like LED little discs that we put in the ends of the guns, and the LEDs would fire forward, and then there's a small ring that fired backward as well.
Oh, so the red flash on her is
It's
real?
yeah.
Oh,
that's cool.
I was wondering because I feel like that would be so much effort to add in later
painting.
because of all the different texture of
It's
the outfit.
really hard. And every now and then we have to do it, but like when we did Army of the Dead, one of the things we did on Army was we designed, we had all gas guns, and that we had all like soft air guns that we used instead of like blanks. Because I've used blanks my entire career and tons of guns and but I felt like I knew on Army we were kind of trying to do like a low budget sort of methodology for filming it. And I was like, look, I really don't want the armorer and the whole process of like bringing a live gun and is it clear and safe and blah, blah, blah. And like it's a long safety protocols around it as there should be. And so I was like, well, if we just go with the soft air guns and we just add muzzle flash to the guns in post and some CG shell cartridges, that'll save a ton of time on the day. And it did. And the thing that was cool about it was when we were so we had to build these like LED lights that were triggered. So I would have to be like, it was all manually like, trying to trigger it with a lot of times. And so in the slow motion shots, a lot of times it was off. Like you'd see it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, for f***'s sake, it's so far off.
And slow-mo is a nightmare for when you're trying to trick timing and stuff.
It's impossible. That's
it really reveals every...
So what we did is when we went to do Rebel Moon, I was like, it's got to be tied to the trigger. Like when they pull the trigger, it's got to turn the light on. That's whatever we have to do to make that happen, let's do it. So that's when we built the guns. Weta Workshop in New Zealand built the guns, the space guns, and they built them with it's kind of got a coax plug in the barrel, like you'd have to plug a battery in.
Yeah.
And then we built these discs that just plug into the gun, and there's a battery in the gun, so you could.
That's great.
It powers the light source, and it all comes off the tick 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 tick. When you fire the gun, the lights flash, and it worked out great. So it allowed that interaction at high speed, which we were blowing on Army like 90% of the time.
Is it something that you'd learned from your previous experiences doing the Army of the Dead?
100%.
And so you used that and then like, well, no, this is what we need to do.
100%.
Make these. That's cool.
Yeah, 100%. Because it was cool. Like it was funny. Just the other day, I was talking to someone about. We were talking about the gas guns and how to use them and whether they look real or whatever. And I just called up on YouTube. I was like, hey, let's look at the casino fight in Army, right? Because I forgot, you make a movie and you don't watch it that many times, weirdly, once it's out. And I was like, oh yeah, let's say this is this thing we shot in this casino in Atlantic City. It's like Dave Bautista fighting some zombies. So we watch. I was like, Jesus, we really went completely out of our minds, didn't we? Because he was like, the person hadn't seen the movie and they were like, oh, are you serious? You filmed this? Like, what is this? And I was like, no, it's like, because he goes, those aren't real guns? I go, no, those are like soft air guns. They're all like, basically just, you put CO2 inside of them, pressurized, and then but it's cool because like every now and then like some of the gas will kind of smoke, and it's not what a real gun does, but it looks cool.
Yeah,
so it was good.
When was the first time you actually used a Phantom?
It was on Justice League during the football sequence.
Right.
In Justice League, where Ray Fisher's like in the snow and all that, and that was the first time that I used the Phantom. I was like, oh my Lord, that's pretty rad.
Yeah,
That's
I'm surprised that, because this Phantom that we use today, the Flex 4K, is now a 10-year-old camera. And I feel like there still hasn't been one that goes faster in 4K.
Yeah, they haven't beaten it. It's a pretty great camera.
It's pretty great, pretty robust camera. And
It's pretty interesting also, the buffering system, how it works.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
You just stop it.
You stop it, and then it's like it's a hard thing I think for a filmmaker to figure out, like right away. You know, like.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big part of my job back in the day, was just getting the director's head around working kind of backwards from the event and saying, like, you've only got this much time, so, I can lower the frame rate and give you a bit more time. It's always a trade-off between
it's
all that
100%.
stuff. And it's like, when do you want the trigger point? But it is so useful for filming an event when you don't know what's going to happen.
Correct.
So, like, for example, if we wanted to put, like, a deodorant can on a fire, and then we're just waiting for it to explode, I cannot imagine how you would do that on photosonics. You would just waste so much film trying to predict when it was going to go
Yeah,
off.
you'd have to have like some sort of temperature gauge, and like the 10 times we tried it before, it went off at the average temperature it went off at was this, so maybe start rolling it when it hits that.
And you just have all these like 1,000 feet of film just of a can sitting
And it
there.
goes,
Damn
boom!
it.
Oh,
Oh, man. Get another deodorant can in, come on.
sorry, the tick, tick, tick is the film rolling
Yeah.
inside the magazine, not in the gate anymore.
Yeah.
That's a classic. It's a sound every filmmaker knows. It's like, because inevitably the actor cries, or the thing falls, or the baby walks
Yeah.
right when you hear the tick, 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 tick,
You just know you're not getting
the tick,
anything.
you know there's no. And to everyone else who's not really aware of it, they're filming. So it's amazing. Like everyone else is like, oh my God, this is awesome. And I'm just like this, because I know that it's nothing.
So what are you excited about when it comes to Rebel Moon Part 2? What are you excited for us to see? That
Well,
you
you're going
can-
to see a fair amount of slow-mo.
Hell yeah.
I can guarantee you that.
Looking forward to that.
I think the cool thing, and the thing that you guys will be excited about, is that, sort of the second half of the movie is pretty much just a war movie, full war in the village. So it was a lot of, from a technical standpoint, I think you'll appreciate the drama, of course, is really, few against many, obviously, is thematic. But from a technical aspect, the idea of like putting on a war at that scale, it was quite cool with with sort of mechanized space tanks and explosions and sort of trench warfare, and they're down in the tunnels, and it's just insanity. And I think that it was really fun to kind of like stage this wild and weird sci-fi war.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I was excited at the end of the first one where Noble was still alive. I like that character, and I liked watching his teeth bounce across that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because
when it comes towards the camera, like,
I think when you see the later this year, all the extended versions, the director's cuts,
The Snyder cuts?
the Snyder cuts will come out.
Hell yeah.
And they're the hardest R possible. And so
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
yeah. Because I was thinking this needs a bit like of more arness.
Yeah, and it definitely has a lot more harness. And even that, and so even like that, because we have all these high-speed shots, so we had to really create like, there's a shot where Cora puts like the gun underneath in the granary fight, and I think in the movie, in the PG-13 version, it cuts wide and she kills the guy. She's on the ground. It's right after there is a full phantom shot of that guy like flipping over and like landing scorpioning into the ground.
Yeah.
And then in that same shot, it ramps and she stabs the guy in the foot, and then she puts the gun under his chin and pulls the trigger. And in the R-rated version, you see like his head kind of like in like slow-mo, his head kind of like it's like if you put a firecracker inside of an egg.
Hell yeah.
You know?
So almost see it like light up from the
Yeah,
inside.
it lights
sort of
up
thing.
and all the cracks, and then kind
Oh,
of like
yeah.
vaporizes.
Yeah, because I was wondering that, because a lot of the more graphic headshots would often happen behind out of focus or shot in a way that was, for younger audiences.
Yeah. And look, to Netflix's credit, and thank God we all went into it with this sort of understanding that we would release the PG-13 versions of the movie, because frankly, what I wrote was that super hard R was the
Right.
movie that I wrote. And
Yeah.
so when they saw it, they were like, well, the issue is that, for the price point, this hard R, which is clearly for a more boutique audience because it's so intense, and and for those people, they'll love it. For the people that love it, it's the best thing ever. But for the kids, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
And I get that, and I was like, yeah. And they go, well, is there any way we could do both? Like maybe we do. You give me the PG-13 version of the movie you want to make, and then we'll let you when that's done, go do whatever you want, you know?
I actually really like that method of doing it, because I feel like in the past you might have had, a theatrical version, and then years later there may have been a director's cut on a DVD of some sort. But I like that it's just like bam and then bam.
Yeah, I liked it too, because I feel like what was awesome about it was, first of all, Netflix also allowed me to shoot a bunch of additional material for the R-rated version. So the experience is wholly original. Like when you watch it, yeah, it's similar, but you really, I think the tone, everything kind of changes when you put this other lens on it. You really are like, whoa, okay, that means that. And I think that part was really exciting to do. And I think when you see both the versions of the movie, also there's a lot more sex in it. It's just like it's a different experience, yeah. I'll be honest, I get dinged a lot. A lot of people are like, you use too much slow-mo. I know that sounds weird to you guys.
I don't know if that's a real thing.
That's a real thing. And also it's like, I've always been asked, like, well, why? Like, why do you use so much slow-mo? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, like, I use a fair amount of slow motion, but in modern cinema, there are certainly films that don't use slow motion, absolutely, and that's cool, and 100% huge respect for that. But like, it's almost like a modern blockbuster movie, and not that I'm trying, because to me, using slow motion is completely natural and not a thing that I don't force it at all. I don't look for slow motion sequences and get all like slow-mo, get it in the cameras. It just happens. It's really instinctive, and when we're choreographing the action sequences, I'm always like, oh, this will be like, this is a cool moment for Photosonics, or I still call it the Phantom Photosonics, by the way. Everyone's like, okay, we know what you mean. So it's not like a thing that's hugely premeditated or hugely. I would say it's more intellectualized than it is premeditated, because it's always like, I'm like, oh, I really like this frame. I'd like to hang it. And by hang it, I mean I'd like to stay with it, right? Yeah. And so it's that kind of thing. And so a lot of times we'll have the Phantom on a whole day and not use it.
I've done a few of those.
It's like you're like, right, well, let's just do this sequence, and if we need the slow-mo, we can bring in the Phantom. And then you're like, no, that would be a cool bit. Yeah. Let's bring it in.
Yeah, like we're doing this fight, let's have it for those days. Or we're doing this explosion, there's going to be 4 days of us blowing shit up, let's have it for all 4 days. We don't know when it'll play exactly, but have them ready.
That's cool. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it to be as spontaneous as that.
Yeah,
which is cool.
I think that in the early days when I would use it, it was much more premeditated and really designed, and now I like it as a tool. And maybe it's partly because the Phantom is so convenient and easy to work with.
Yeah, you can just keep going.
Yeah.
It's a lot of data, but who cares?
It is, but you don't have to take all of it.
Yeah, little trims.
Yeah.
Do you use motion control?
I don't. Or like this Bolt camera is awesome for that. Because the cool thing about this is the problem, and we were talking about earlier, the idea of putting a camera move in a high-speed shot is difficult, because the camera, the action for a human is so hard to, like the dolly grip's you'd have to have like track all the way across here, and everyone.
The pull grip's like.
Yeah, you got to like get the camera up to like 30 miles an hour.
And each take is getting slower. He's getting more tired.
Yeah, exactly.
You just have to have line of grips, like.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
I was able to get like this. I recruited these bobsledders to do it.
The Cool Runnings crew coming through.
Exactly. They were out of their bobsledding days, and they went into pushing dollies on high-speed photography shots. It was funny because I was just in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia at the Joy Awards, and they had a Bolt and a Phantom. So when you won your award, it was kind of like they did at the Academy Awards.
The glamour bot thing.
Yeah, and so I threw my award in the air, They were all like freaked out. I'm like, I'm not going to drop it, don't worry. But they were like, can you do it and not look at it? And I was like, oh, okay, that's going to be a little bit more of a thing. I think I have.
Did you do it? Did you get it?
Yeah, I think I have it.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Just no look. Don't worry about it.
It was a bolty move. Yeah, but so I was like, because they were like, hey, can you do something
dynamic?
I was going to try and like spin around, but then I was like,
well, like around the back.
Yeah. But it also comes apart a little bit, so I didn't want it to.
It's like I like how you clearly like graphic novels and things like that, and you managed to kind of combine slow motion. Like you were talking about with the bit where the head explodes like an egg.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like quite graphic, novelly, and you've made it with the slow mo.
It's
and
100%
create
a
physics
shot you would see like
sci-fi, and then it's
in like Heavy Metal magazine.
Exactly,
that
yeah.
was. And by the way, it was probably Heavy Metal magazine is the most. It's the clearest touchstone for the tone of like if you've ever seen the animated film, have you ever watched that animated Heavy Metal movie?
I haven't actually.
It's insane. It's worth it. It's worth watching if you find yourself like with like a bunch of marijuana or something, and like you're just like, what the fuck am I gonna do with this? Oh, I know. Put on Heavy Metal. That's it. Sorry, I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that could happen somewhere. I'm not saying that's ever happened or it will, but Anyway, my point is that, because when I was growing up, Heavy Metal was had such a strong influence on me as a kid, because it was an adult illustrated fantasy magazine. That's what it says on the cover.
Right.
It's small, but it's on there. My mom didn't see that part. She just saw Heavy Metal. She never read it really closely.
You just had your thumb over that
Yeah,
part.
nice. And so, that influence of that, extreme violence, sexuality, sci-fi, everything just at 11, really. And it's an anthology, so it was always a new story, new artist. I introduced to these amazing. Illustrators, storytellers, image storytellers through that magazine. It really changed sort of my aesthetic, and I really wanted to honor it and that's what Rebel Moon really is in a lot of ways, is homage to that. And it kind of it's perverse Star Wars, but I think the PG-13 is kind of more accessible and sort of, I don't want to call it normal, but it's an easy movie to watch,
Yeah, and that style pairs so well with the graphic novel vibe. I remember watching The Watchmen before I read the graphic novel, and I was so blown away to see how accurate the film was in terms of.
Once you read the graphic novel later,
I read it later. I was like, oh my god, it's wow.
Yeah.
And just the slow mo, people getting torn apart and Rorschach just getting popped.
So the reason we're going to have the R version is because your mum didn't stop you from buying a magazine when you were a kid. It's because it's inspired you.
Pretty much correct. Pretty much correct.
Thanks, Mum.
Yeah, pretty much correct. She actually bought me a subscription to the magazine as a gift for Christmas because she knew I was buying it, and she goes, "Oh, I got you it. It's going to come monthly," and I was like,
"Can I have a look?
Are you sure?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "That's fantastic."
Yeah.
So it was
what a
really
legend.
good, and it came in a. It kind of had a brown, if you had bought a dirty magazine, it has a brown paper covering,
definitely.
Yeah.
It would always come in that brown, because if you sold, a lot of times the covers were pretty racy. Mm-hmm. So if you bought it sometimes if you bought it at the magazine store, it had that cover on it. And I was glad my mother never suspected. I think she just thought it was for protection, like how, they didn't want it to be ruined in the mail.
Sure.
I was like, they don't want you to, it's a naked woman on the cover of the mag. It's a drawing, but it's
Yeah. Well, it's super interesting to hear your inspirations, and you've been a huge inspiration to me.
Well, thank you guys. I learned a lot today, so thanks.
Yeah, I don't think seeing 300 for me was a huge turning point with just my enthusiasm for slow-mo.
Oh, good.
Loved it.
Cool.
So thanks for making that and all your other movies.
That was a huge inspiration for my six-pack.
I went the camera route, you just started hitting the gym.
Clearly,
I definitely don't have a six-pack. Not anymore. All right. Yeah.
All right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, make sure to check out Rebel Moon Part 2. What's the date of it?
April 19th.
April 19th.
It's in Netflix, and I know you have Netflix, so don't act like, how am I going to watch that?
All right. Thank you very much for
Cheers.
watching. See you next time.
Awesome, guys. Thanks.
That ruled. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Oh, that was great.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.